They knew the truth could hurt people. I spoke up anyway, and they fired me. Not for lying, for refusing to. I still remember the exact moment I realized I was walking into the end of my comfort zone. It wasn't some dramatic confrontation or a single phone call. It was the way my manager looked at me across the conference table, like I'd grown a second head overnight. I'd spent the last 5 years at this company. 5 years of grinding, of late nights and coffee-fueled spreadsheets, of convincing myself that office politics were just a background noise I could ignore. And somehow, somewhere along the way, I developed this reputation. Honest to a fault. They'd whisper, sometimes like it was a compliment, sometimes like it was a warning. I thought honesty was a good thing. I thought it would get me respect. Turns out, in a corporation that thrives on polished reports and euphemisms, honesty is like a lit match in a gas station. It started innocently enough. There was a new client pitch coming up, big, high stakes, the kind that makes your CV look impressive just for touching it. I was asked to review some of the proposed marketing numbers. They weren't exactly lies, but they were stretched. Optimistic projections, my manager said. I looked at the spreadsheets and the presentations, then at her, and said, "This is misleading. If the client finds out, it'll blow back on us. I can't sign off on this." She blinked at me like I had suggested we throw the moon into the ocean. "You're being dramatic," she said. "It's just how business works." And that was it. That little crack, that first time I refused to wink at a problem and nod along like everyone else. After that, I started noticing the small things. The emails that never reached my inbox, the meetings I wasn't invited to, the way people would look at me like I just confessed to murdering someone when I asked a question about ethical sourcing. Then came the bigger moment. I don't even remember the exact date. Maybe it was a Thursday, but there was a supplier report showing that a vendor we were using had been cutting corners, serious stuff. Safety violations, environmental concerns, the kind of thing that should have been front-page internal memo material. I brought it up in a team meeting, carefully, like I was handling a ticking bomb. I said, "We need to address this. It's not just about the numbers. People could get hurt." Silence. Thick, awkward silence. And then my manager said, "We'll handle it internally. No need to alarm anyone." Alarm anyone? I wanted to scream that people could literally get hurt, but I didn't. I just nodded, took the files back to my desk, and sent an email to HR. Just a brief note, factual, nothing accusatory, nothing dramatic. I thought I was doing the right thing. A week later, HR called me in. I sat across from two people I barely knew, trying to remember if my stomach had ever been this hollow before. They asked questions, polite, professional questions, but the underlying message was loud and clear. Your approach to honesty is incompatible with a company culture. That was the euphemism. I sat there, blinking, like maybe I'd misheard. Incompatible with a company culture? I repeated, my voice higher than I expected. "Yes," they said. "You were terminated effective immediately." And that was it. I packed my things in silence, my desk suddenly alien, and walked out of the building thinking, well, that's it. At first, I felt numb. I kept thinking maybe there was a mistake. Maybe it was temporary, like a weird HR glitch that would be corrected. But when the calls didn't come, when the emails remained unanswered, I realized this was real. I'd been fired for being too honest. And for the first time in years, I felt that old, gnawing fear creeping in. What now? The irony isn't lost on me, though. I'm proud of myself. I truly am. I didn't compromise my values. I didn't shrug and smile and lie to save my job. I stood up for what was right. But at the same time, I can't stop thinking about rent, about student loans, about the way your reputation in one company can follow you like a shadow. The job market feels different when you're labeled the honest one who couldn't play along. The first night after it happened, I couldn't sleep. I just sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the ceiling, scrolling through job postings, wondering if I'd have to bend a little, if I'd have to smile through the small lies that seem like a necessary part of office life. I kept replaying every interaction with my manager, wondering if there was a phrase I could have used differently, a softer way to put it, a cleverer way to navigate the corporate labyrinth. But then I would shake my head and think, no, I can't. I won't. Friends have tried to reassure me. It's their loss, they say. Companies like that don't deserve you. And I want to believe them. I really do. But there's a tiny, persistent voice in the back of my head, whispering, you're screwed. No one's going to hire the honest one. Even applying for new jobs has been weird. I want to be upfront, obviously, but how much honesty is too much? How do you explain to a potential employer that you were fired for being ethical? Most application forms don't have a box for, I refused to lie, and they fired me for it. And when I do try to explain, the HR scripts kick in immediately. That's an interesting approach, but let's move on. I can feel their discomfort, the polite way they sidestep it, and I don't blame them. I'd probably do the same thing if I were hiring. But the weirdest part, honestly, is that I don't regret it. Not really. There's a clarity in standing up for what you believe in, even when it costs you everything. There's a strange kind of liberation in it, like I can't ever unsee myself in that moment of courage. And yeah, it's scary. It's terrifying. But I keep telling myself that it's better than the alternative. Going home every night knowing I compromised my own integrity for a paycheck. I guess the hardest thing now is the in-between. It's not despair yet. Not entirely, but it's not comfort either. It's that liminal space where your past job, the routine you knew, has vanished, and the future is just this blurry, uncertain, unformed thing. And somehow, you're supposed to keep walking forward, even when all you want to do is curl up and wait for someone to call you back with good news that's not coming. The first week after being fired felt like walking through fog. I went through the motions, checking emails, sending out applications, updating my LinkedIn, but it all seemed so hollow. Each rejection or non-response felt like a tiny punch, not because I thought I was unqualified, but because somewhere deep down I knew they were rejecting me, the honest, blunt, slightly inconvenient version of me. I tried talking to people about it, but it's weird how honesty backfires. Friends nod, but you can see the hesitation behind their eyes, like they're trying to measure just how much reality they're allowed to accept. It's not that bad, they say. Maybe it was a good thing. But inside, I can't make it feel good. It wasn't good. It was scary and lonely and humiliating in a way that doesn't leave bruises, but leaves something heavier, something invisible. I started imagining scenarios constantly. What if I'd phrased things differently? What if I'd softened my approach with HR, or phrased my concerns about the vendor in a more corporate-friendly way? But every time I tried, my stomach clenched. No, that wasn't me. I'd spent years practicing careful honesty, learning how to be direct without being abrasive, and still, it wasn't enough. Not for them. I remember one afternoon sitting in a coffee shop, staring at my laptop, pretending to browse jobs, but really just spiraling. A guy at the next table laughed loudly on a call, and for a split second I envied him. His ease, the way he could lie and stretch reality, without blinking. I caught myself thinking, God, I wish I could just... And then I shut the laptop. No. I can't wish away who I am. I can't trade integrity for comfort, even though comfort looks so damn tempting right now. Eventually, I started reaching out to old colleagues, quietly, cautiously. I needed insight, a sense of whether my reputation had taken a permanent hit. Most didn't respond, which hurt more than I expected. The ones who did, well, they danced around the subject. Yeah, corporate can be weird, they said. It's not personal. I wanted to scream. It is personal. They fired me. They looked me in the eye and said I don't fit in because I tell the truth. But instead, I nodded and sipped my coffee, letting the bitterness linger. Then there was my family. I had to tell them what happened because I couldn't hide it. My mom cried, which made me feel both guilty and stubbornly proud. She said I should have been more strategic, I don't know, pliable? My dad was quieter, just shaking his head and muttering, "They'll regret this." Both reactions confused me. I knew they loved me, but their disappointment stung. Not because they doubted me, but because my choices, my refusal to compromise, had consequences they were seeing firsthand. And I hated that I put them in that position. The irony, though, is that amidst all the fear, there's a strange sense of empowerment. I can say things I would never have said before, unfiltered. I can call out half-truths in conversations with friends or in minor interactions with strangers. It's addictive in a weird, terrifying way. But it's also lonely. Being unflinchingly honest isn't something that earns you friends in most social situations, let alone employment. I started journaling, messy, incoherent notes about every little moment of doubt, fear, and tiny victory. And weirdly, writing helped me feel like I wasn't entirely lost. It gave me a place to process the tangled mess of pride and anxiety, hope and despair. It reminded me that while the corporate world might have rejected me, I hadn't betrayed myself. Then came the first interview post-firing. I still remember walking into that sterile office, trying to smile without looking desperate. The HR manager asked the dreaded question, "Why did you leave your last position?" My stomach did a flip, and I had two options, lie or tell the truth. The truth spilled out before I could stop it. "I was fired," I said. Pause. Because I refused to compromise my integrity. Silence. And then the professional smile, the nod, the polite redirection. I see. Let's move on. My heart sank a little. I could almost feel my chances evaporating in real time. But I also felt something else. Relief. I hadn't lied. I had told the truth. And there's value in that, even if no one else seems to recognize it. Days blurred into weeks. I applied everywhere. Got rejections, got ghosted, got the occasional, "we'll keep your resume on file," which I knew was just corporate speak for, "Go away. We don't want your inconvenient honesty here." Each rejection stung less over time, though. I started to realize that it wasn't about me being unworthy. It was about the system, the ecosystem I had tried to navigate. I had been swimming against a current designed to reward compliance over ethics. And maybe, just maybe, swimming against it wasn't the wrong choice. But still, fear lingers. The bank account doesn't care about integrity. Rent doesn't care if you stood up for ethics. I've had nights staring at my phone, wondering how long I can hold out, wondering if I should bend, just a little, to survive. And every time I think that, my chest tightens. I can't. I won't. I won't look back and tell myself I traded my values for comfort. The loneliness is real. It's not just the isolation of unemployment. It's the knowledge that the world doesn't always reward doing the right thing. Friends drift away because they don't know what to say. Employers avoid you because they can't control the narrative. Even casual conversations feel like minefields. I'm walking around with this neon sign on my forehead, dangerous honesty ahead. And yet, there's something quietly beautiful in that. In a way, being fired for honesty is like a weird badge of courage. It's proof that I can't be bought, that I won't lie to make life easier. It's terrifying and liberating in the same breath. I know I'm standing at a crossroads. One path softens, compromises, bends to survive. The other is narrow, difficult, uncertain, but true to me. I don't have all the answers yet. I don't even know if I'll find a new job soon, or if the next employer will value honesty over pliability. But I do know this. I can't stop being me. And as scary as that is, as lonely as it can feel, it's also the one thing I can hold on to. A month after being fired, I started to notice a strange shift in myself. The fear was still there. The gnawing anxiety of not knowing what comes next. The creeping thought that maybe honesty is a luxury no one can afford. But it was accompanied by something else. Something like clarity. I can't even explain it properly. It's like I suddenly see the world in sharper contrast. The compromises, the little bends people make to keep their jobs or social status, they're all there plain as day. And me? I'm standing on the edge, hands raw from refusing to hold onto a lifeline I didn't trust. I got a call one morning from a small nonprofit I had applied to weeks ago. The kind of place that doesn't care about your perfectly curated LinkedIn persona. They asked me to come in for an interview, and something about their tone, casual and unpolished, made me feel safe, in a way I hadn't felt since being fired. For the first time, I didn't rehearse a single line about team fit or cultural alignment. I didn't soften my story. I just told them, "I was let go," I said, voice steady, because I refused to lie about certain practices in my last job. I care about transparency and ethics, and that didn't fit there. I'm proud of that, but I also know it makes me challenging in some environments. I expected hesitation. I expected polite smiles or a quick redirect. But instead, they nodded. One of the interviewers leaned back, thoughtful. "That's actually refreshing," she said. "We need someone who will call things as they are. Someone who won't sweep problems under the rug." I nearly laughed. Is this real? I thought. I had been so conditioned to expect rejection, to expect that honesty would always burn bridges. But here was someone who seemed to value exactly what had cost me my previous job. The offer came a week later. It's not a Fortune 500 corporation. The pay is less, the benefits are modest, but it's honest work in a place that, at least for now, feels aligned with who I am. I accepted immediately. And yet, even in that joy, there's a lingering shadow. The world hasn't changed just because I found a safe harbor. There are countless other companies where honesty is dangerous, where telling the truth can end careers. I have to remind myself that this is luck, timing, and a little bit of risk, not a universal truth. I still think about my old job. About the manager who stared at me like I'd committed a crime. About the HR reps who delivered the news with carefully neutral tones. I replay those moments sometimes, not to obsess, but to remind myself why I made the choices I did. And yeah, I'm scared about the future. Scared that I'll hit another wall, scared that my honesty problem will follow me. But I also know something vital. I didn't trade my values for comfort, and that counts for more than any paycheck ever could. I've started telling this story more openly, to friends, to new colleagues, even in casual conversation. The reactions are mixed. Some are admiring, some are incredulous, some are politely skeptical. But I've stopped trying to manage their reactions. It's exhausting, and it's unnecessary. I don't need everyone to get it. I just need to get it myself. And I do. The hardest moments are still the quiet ones. Lying awake at night, imagining the worst-case scenarios. Wondering if I'll ever fully recover financially, if I'll have to compromise to survive, if the world will continue to punish the honest and reward the cunning. But in those moments, I also remember the other side. The courage it took to stand up, the self-respect I earned, the integrity I refused to sell. And somehow, that keeps me grounded. I catch myself smiling at small things now. A genuine compliment. A colleague admitting they need help. A clear, unambiguous policy at my new workplace that prioritizes ethics over expedience. These small victories feel enormous after the last few months. They remind me that honesty isn't always costly. It can also be rare, valued, and even protective. Sometimes, I feel the urge to warn people. Don't be too honest. Or maybe the opposite. Be brave enough to be honest, even if it costs you everything. I can't decide which is more practical advice. What I do know is this. Honesty changed my life in ways I couldn't have predicted. It cost me a job, strained relationships, and a sense of security, but it also taught me who I really am, what I can endure, and that there are places, people, where honesty is not a liability but a strength.
So here I am.
A little older, a little more cautious, a lot more aware. I'm proud, scared, hopeful, exhausted, and strangely exhilarated all at once. And maybe that's the point. Life doesn't reward neatness. It doesn't reward perfect planning or social lubrication. Sometimes it rewards courage. Sometimes it punishes it. But I've learned that I can't let fear dictate the choices that define me. I'm still figuring it out, every single day. Still learning how to navigate a world that doesn't always value honesty. Still learning how to balance integrity with survival. But I keep moving forward. I keep applying, speaking, and showing up. And somewhere along the way, I hope I'll find a space that doesn't just tolerate honesty, it actually welcomes it. And maybe, just maybe, I'll realize that being fired wasn't the end. It was a beginning.